Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our final video on Factorio. You said it couldn't be done. You doubted me. Your commenters down there. We went to space. And actually, in a surprising twist, it was not that hard. Very bizarre ending to Factorio for me, but not in a bad way because it makes total sense as to how this game works. I got in there for the final day and I had literally told my wife I wouldn't be home till like probably the next day, you know, essentially like sometime in the middle of the night. My team was like, are we going to meet today? Because usually we have our team meeting about all the things coming up. And especially with me leaving on Sunday, there was lots to talk about. And they were like, how's this going to go? It was all a bit up in the air. I was like, we need to finish Factorio. Not because I want to. That's the important message I want to say. It's not because I was like, I have to get this game out of the way. I'm done with it. Let's move on. No, we've got other things coming. Monster Hunter Wilds launches, and I'm going away, and things are going to be happening there. So it's the last time we really have to play. So we need to finish it now, but it's not a case of I want to rush it to the end. So I just gave myself all day to get it done. I finished way early. How did it play out? It played out as it should have done, actually. Everything I had built over the last few days, including the defensive lines and the train stations for uranium and all that kind of stuff, and the mall, all paid off, which means everything I needed to get going was kind of simple to do. The rocket silo completion happened, the research for it, and then I was like, okay, first of all, I'm going to build a little factory that's going to upgrade all my belts to blue, right? That took a little bit of time. And then I needed to establish another source of iron. So I built a new iron mine, which I already had blueprints for. So I shoved that stuff down and got that moving. And the train line was already set up, so I didn't need to mess around too much with that. Just built it down and got it going. Set the uranium train going. That was fine. But I never touched uranium until after we'd quote-unquote finished the game, so we'll get there, dudes. As well as I found out about what main bus is, so look forward to that. And then I was like, okay, the rocket silo requires these things. It was like low-density structures and things like that. I was like, oh, we're already making all these things? Huh. I was thinking about the rocket silo. I was like, what do I want to do? And I wanted, again, I know this is like mind-blowing to some people, but it's how I wanted it to be. Is that I wanted it to be off at the shore like Cape Canaveral. I wanted it to be out in the out by the waters, to fly over the waters and things like that. That's what I wanted for my base. People got really mad. They're like, why wouldn't you just build it near the base where it's convenient to get stuff to? I'm like, because it's less fun. I want it over there. So I built it off in the wilderness. And my plan was then, it required these three resources. Rocket fuel I didn't have, but blue chips and the density structures I had. So I just made a little receiver box and just said pick those up and start lugging them in. To whatever we're getting, whatever's excess being made, do that. And then I went and sorted rocket fuel out. This was fun because it was a lot of copy and paste, a little bit of pipe work. And I basically was thinking I should just overkill this because we're in the end game. So why not? You know, just overkill the hell out of it and just make tons and tons of it because we just need to fill up the rocket, I guess. And I was worried that this was going to take all day. And what really gave me pause was there was 2 progress bars. 2. And I wrote on a notepad what I think is going to happen. It turned out I was wrong, but my theory was, as it started to creep up in percentage, that every fill of this top percentage bar would actually only contribute 1% to the overall rocket building. That's what I thought was going to happen because it was kind of too easy. Everything was going fine. I doubled blue chip production. I doubled rocket fuel. I doubled low density structures. And then I built... I didn't want to do this. This wasn't my initial plan. In fact, what I wanted to do was have red, white, and blue belts because it was, you know, we're flying the rocket, we're off, we're building NASA leading up to it, but it became inconvenient to mess around with this, and in fact I ended up muddling some belts up. The worst thing that I did is a chest that I must have placed a long time ago was actually a storage chest that was emptying my inventory and pouring it onto the belt, and I could not find it for ages. I could not find the damn thing anywhere. And I kept getting, like, engines and stuff just on the belt, which was super frustrating. By the way, the belt completed, and then the memery started. Because the rocket was ready, and then but then he goes, ah! Can't launch an empty rocket. You now need to build a satellite. And I was like, oh, this is how this is going to go. Okay. So I was like, right, check the satellite. Was fine. Was totally fine. Was like, okay, well, build a satellite. Did that very quickly. And then it was like, well, it can't take off without a landing pad. I was like, okay, this is not going to end. This is going to be a continuous stream of things that make you think you're there, but you're actually not. But the landing pad was super easy to build. I was like, okay, place that down. And then it was kind of done. I'll say, in between this happening, I spent like an hour maximizing rocket production within reason, not like max. Because I was convinced that every time I filled the top progress bar, it was going to like start filling in a second progress bar, and we needed lots of these materials. No, that's what I thought it was going to be. And it wasn't. It was just, you could build another rocket, and it starts building the second rocket while the first rocket is building. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I saw it, the launch button. This was like 4 hours into the day. And I was like, this can't be it. But it seems like it's it. But something's going to happen, something weird. And then I hit the button. And sure enough, victory popped up on the screen. Victory popped up. I hadn't even touched uranium at all. And it was over. And that makes total sense. Because it's not about the ending. That's not what this game is. Because very quickly, like, now you can keep playing. Because there's loads more stuff to do. But you have, you know, got to the end, quote unquote, of what the levels of production are needed for this game. You understand it. It's more a case of like tutorial complete. You get it. If you've made it here, you understand what you're supposed to do. Good job. Now get to the game. And I was like, that actually makes perfect sense. In a way, it felt deflating because I was expecting some big finale. But the game isn't that. And that's great. It's just like, yeah, now you get it. Now you can go and have fun and mess around and stuff. And I was like, well, we're not finished here. We're going to mess around with uranium. I'm glad this happened this way because I really disliked the nuclear system. I would have been very, very disappointed if I had fully invested a whole day into, or come into like, right, we got to sort nuclear power out and then we're going to do the rocket. Let's say if I had 2 days and I didn't like focus on the rocket more, because it ended up just being kind of not fun is how I would say it. Is the cracking, you know, processing the uranium, and then you have to use the Corvex refining process to get one extra, and eventually that will like churn into itself and keep producing, but it takes a long time, and then you'll eventually get enough to get 2 of these refining processes going, and then eventually you can start using it to make nuclear power. I know this is like an endgame system, but I would have been disappointed instead of like, oh, we could produce this, and then we could put it into here, and you know, like you would do with, say, gas. You know, you crack the gas, that's kind of a whole thing, you build out a whole setup, but you are like constantly moving forward to make something instead of like this needs to cook for a bit, leave it alone, come back to it later, and then some stuff will happen. I ended up building a bunch of centrifuges to try and speed the process up, but ultimately I was like, this is kind of not interesting, and I've already made it. I actually got a challenge mode achievement, I guess is what it was called, which was like to actually send the rocket without ever building something other than steam power. I had no solar panels, so it gave me like this achievement for doing that, which I thought was really fun. But that's how it kind of ended for me, because we're leaving it there. Then I watched the Space Age trailer. Oh my god. Yeah, I can't wait. I honestly can't wait. I'm actually a little annoyed that I saw the trailer. I have a bit of a rule that I've enforced more and more over the last sort of 5 years is if we're going to play a game, and I know we're going to play it, so it'd be like something like the new Resident Evil, you know, the ones you know, those IPs that you love, like if they were making BioShock 5 or whatever, I wouldn't watch the trailer because I don't want to know anything. I want that surprise because far too often in marketing, they need to sell the product. I get it. They need to entice people in who might not have played the first one and not coming in with that, like, I'm definitely going to play this game. And therefore, they have to show things that entice people to be like, ooh, I want to do that. I have enough from the base game to want to play the DLC. So I don't want to know what's in it. And I watched the trailer because, you know, it was a bit of peer pressure. I don't know when we're going to get to it because it'll be down the line somewhere. And I really wish I hadn't. To see that giant worm, spoilers, giant worm and crawling crabs and things like that, I was like, God, I kind of wish I had just gone to this planet. I didn't know there was 5 planets, to not know there's 5 planets. and to find like these different biomes and what the hell is going on there and have that experience. I really am sad I saw that, but also it looks incredible. It looks so fun. Elevated trains is possibly the most exciting thing I could think of. But as we were coming to the end, the request was you should see a real working base. I'm going to forget the name of the content creator here. I should have prepared it beforehand. I'm a terrible person, and maybe Bex can find it down below. I'm not promising that. I hate them. And I think this is a positive for the game. And I think people recognize this as a positive. The really efficient, the main bus system, which I've now seen in action, and Edram, who does a lot of coding for us for a lot of the extensions that we use, he's a huge Factorio player, and he showed me around his very optimized base, which includes things like quality and rares and epics and legendaries and things like that. Yeah, not for me. And that's fine. You know, we were talking about some people play the game on peaceful so that they don't even deal with enemies. They just build this perfect structure. And I totally get that. And it actually very much reminded me of my old Command & Conquer Generals days, where my first apartment that I shared with my other university friends, we turned our living room into a LAN center, because obviously. And we all generally would play Command & Conquer Generals on the LAN most weekends. And I would be the only one who would have enemies on the map. All my friends, including my flatmates, would just make the enemy incredibly stupid and docile and keep like one person alive or one building and just make a great base. That's what they love to do. And Factorio is all about that life. It's all about that life. But also, for me, the chaos of jury rigging it together. I generally start with an idea of what this should look like. And then, as I don't know what's coming next, it gets messed up and tangled into the spaghetti. That's really fun for me, as well as the constant pressure of assaulting enemies. Because that's part of the fun. As frustrating as it is, that's part of the joy of being a game. Is that, yes, I want this thing to happen. I want to build the train station. I want to build the mall. But at the same time, I have to deal with these things and these disruptions and going to battle. And now I have to set out on like going on a warpath to clear an area. And then I need to wall it in, make sure my defenses are straight. And that's not working. And so that's a big part of the fun for me for the game. Having the perfectly efficient base is way less enticing for my playstyle. But I know, and I've experienced, a lot of people like that's the ultimate goal. That's exactly what it's about. And it caters to both styles. There's no perfect way to play, is I guess of what I'm saying. And from what Edram told me, is like, he thinks the devs also didn't, they were fine with people making the perfect base, but they also wanted some disruption. That was part of the ethos of what the game was designed around. And so some of the planets they've built in Space Age kind of disrupt the idea of making this idyllic, hyper-efficient base in many ways, in order to encourage a little bit of like thinking about what you want, how you're going to solve a problem, creating problems, creating conflict, right? Creating that conflict, that stress point, which is very important for a video game to have those elements if you want them. So that's one of the reasons I'm really looking forward to Space Age, which is probably more catered to someone like me and how I want to play, versus, you know, just making the most idyllic base. Because for me, the very perfect bases, we checked a few of them. There was a video we watched of somebody who was making, I think it was 20,000 science a second or something, which is insane because that's like 20 rockets landing per second. I made it a few minutes into that video before, one, I very much respect the level of detail and depth that people can go into with a game like this. I can see the joy, and I actually brought up, it's like, this is what it probably sounds like to my wife and her friends if I start talking about the nuances of, say, the World of Warcraft history, about going into the level of detail of what happened in 2005 with the conflict between during, say, Naxxramas Necropolis, while multiple guilds were in unknowing and sharing secret, all this stuff where they'd just be like, whatever. And I could hear the calculator going to figure everything out and to do the math every couple of seconds there. I was like, this isn't for me. This is not what I enjoy. And I had the same conversation about belt balances. So Edram showed me the downloads that you can get from like the subreddits or the forums of pre-made blueprints of perfect belt balances. And they're very complex, right? It's something that you would need to spend a hell of a lot of time to figure out how 6 inputs always output equally, regardless of where you tag onto them. And all this kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. Like, good enough with a bit of jank is my perfect place to be. Like, really, it works, it's fine, but it will, you know, eventually fall over, create that conflict for me to solve. Is fine for me. That's more than that's my happy place. I'm happy there. I don't need it to be perfection. And I think that's come from doing YouTube as well for a long time, is when you're making videos or you're making content, you can spend a lifetime on a single video, but ultimately it's got to go out, and then you can review it many times, which we've experienced a lot here. And everybody already has, we could do this, we could do that. At some point, it's got to go out. And then you try and do better the next time. You try and do better the next time. And I love that. I love that process. Ultimately, this game is S tier as hell. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think I'll do Satisfactory before doing Space Age is likely what I'll do for a bit of change of pace. But for now, we're hunting monsters. Monster Hunter Wilds has arrived. I can't wait. I'm going to be playing it today as I record this. So for Factorio, S tier again. We've got a real streak of S tier games. And from what I can tell from some of the comments from our community, many of you are also discovering these games for the first time as well. That have been just sitting on Steam or whatever, you know, for a few quid. And it's like, and then, you know, through the playthrough. And that really brings me happiness. It's like, okay, yeah, I found a game I love. In a genre maybe I didn't even think I'd enjoy, but I get it now. And that's awesome. So we'll continue that streak, all right? So, new series starts tomorrow. Monster Hunter. Bye.